Hello, everybody. Welcome to our talk. Today we are going to talk about type-safe feature flagging in OpenFeature and kind of the lessons that we were learning across at Google. My name is Florin, and I've been a software engineer at Google for 3 years. And my work was kind of revolving around feature flags and making rollouts across Google Cloud Platform safer. And for a while now, I've been an active open source contributor in this project that we're going to talk about today.
Hi there. I'm Mike Beemer. I'm a product manager at Dynatrace. I've been in software for quite a while now with a number of different roles. I'm an active open source contributor. I'm also a co-founder of OpenFeature and on the governance committee.
That's very cool. So I'm going to start off with one question towards all of you. I'm wondering who here is using feature flags in their code and who here has used a feature flag in their code? Why? No, I'm kidding. The feature flags are really, really cool, and hopefully if you're using them, you get to keep using them. And yeah, so just to walk you a little bit through the agenda, I'm going to talk about, for those of you who don't know what feature flags are, I'm going to talk a little bit about them. I'm going to talk about how we are using feature flags at Google, our approach and a few lessons that we've learned across the way, and some findings that we thought would be useful to share with everybody. And then Mike is going to walk you through the code generation OpenFeature CLI, the thing we're here to show you today. And stay tuned until to the very end to find out how you can use it, and more even importantly, how you can also contribute to it if you like what you see here. Cool. So what is a feature flag? Feature flags kind of represent this very, very cool way to, kind of dynamically change the behavior of your binary without creating a new binary release every time, right? We are allowed to dynamically enable or disable a particular feature, and you don't have to modify the source code. So what is the advantage of something like this? I think the biggest advantage that there is to allow for more progressive rollouts of feature flags. So it allows more granularity that you couldn't do with a binary release. You could slowly, gradually enable a new feature or functionality of your code. And with that kind of comes the risk reduction as well. You have a more safer way of enabling them, and even quicker way usually of disabling. If you figure out something goes wrong into production, just quickly disable the feature, ramp it down, and the problem is mitigated. And usually that takes a bit less time than it would with a normal binary release. And lastly, a very, very big advantage is the allowing you to experiment, right? So a very, very common use case of feature flags is A/B testing. How do we use them at Google? I think, we use them more or less the same way as anybody would do it, but I wanted to point out that, we started using at Google this for a long, long time. So way back since 2009, feature flag was the first time that Google was giving it a try at feature flags. At that time, I was very, very young, just caring about video games and stuff. So, just Google was there, yeah, let's do feature flags. So, but here I am to talk about, something that happened, it's been happening for a while is what I'm trying to say. And this has pretty much become the de facto way of, of introducing new functionalities and releases. Most of our developers use feature flags, so it's about 70% of them, use it at least like on a regular basis, and I would bet that, most of them have used it at least once, at least once. And with that kind of comes also like the huge, large code base of feature flags that we have. So as you see, there is more than 150K. But with that, I want to clarify what active feature flags means is how many of them exist in the code base, not how many are in the middle of a rollout, because one of the things people like to do with feature flags is introduce them. One of the things people don't like to do with feature flags is clean them up. So that is the least favorite thing of any developer to do the cleanup part of afterwards. And one of the interesting things or tidbits that I can share from Google is that YouTube a while back had this very, very funny policy that if you wanted to introduce a new feature flag, you had to clean up 2 other feature flags in return to kind of just to start cleaning up the code base and keep it like more well-maintained, sort of to say. So yeah, and the way we use it is pretty much the way that I just explained before: gradual rollouts, A/B testing, and it allows us for a more way of safely, changing of what is like pretty much a very, very large code base. So I think that's a really crucial thing for us to make sure that we prevent outages and we can mitigate them very, very, very quickly. So let's take a look next at like how you might use a particular feature flag in your code, like how you may have come to know it or be familiarized with it, right? So let's say we have this React example over here. We want to introduce a feature flag which will show a new message in our in our homepage or something like this. And you can see there we are using this flag called new message. You see there on the second line it's use flag new message. And if the flag is enabled, then we're going to show the new message. Else, just show the classical old way of the message. Except, what if somewhere in the flag management system where we initially introduced this feature, we call it in a completely different name? Maybe the developer was out of sync with the PM, something happened, and it's just like a completely different name. And when trying to query the value for this flag, we cannot find it in our flag management system. Then what? Well, in that case, you would default to the code default value, which is true. And in this case, what happened is just because let's say we weren't paying attention, we completely enabled the feature overnight. We enabled it for all of the users instead of like getting that functionality of gradually enabling the feature. And that kind of begs the question: when you have a flag service in an app, who's right? Somebody has a value of true, and then in the your flag service, the flag is kind of disabled. So yeah, who is right in that case? Who has the absolute source of truth of what the value of the flag should be evaluated towards? And with that kind of comes those multiple sources of truth that I want to talk about. We have this. We have this drawing over here. I'm going only to focus on the green part and the blue part, and Mike will go a little bit in depth into like what is inside this very nice blue box. So you have kind of like the service and the app, and that's kind of the whole trick with feature flags, that it allows you to pretty much change something in the service, change something in the flag service, which in turn will impact the behavior of your host application. So your app is querying the flag service and trying to figure out like what is the value for your feature flag. And as far as the flag service, which is serving the flag to the host application, is usually updated very, very frequently, or rather, should I say, propagated, right? We want, as soon as we make the changes of our flag to be, enable it or ramp it up or ramp it down, we want those changes to be propagated pretty quickly, which usually is the case with the flag service. The changes are propagated in a pretty quick manner. Then we have, our app, which usually is updated on a more less frequent cycle, at least less frequent than we would think about the flag service, right? You might have your weekly or few other days release cycle for your app, and that's kind of interesting because the flag is kind of referenced in both of those places, and yet it is being rolled out in a different release, in a different release cycle. So that kind of puts us in this space where you end up with maybe the flag existing in your flag service, but it's not yet in your host app, or maybe the flag is in your host app, but it's not in your flag service or what have you. So then what should the value be, or what is the actual perspective of what we should evaluate the value towards? And with that kind of comes the idea to really properly think about like how do you actually introduce, how do you roll out the flag, and the proper life cycle of a feature flag. So I put here like a few of these steps. So you create the flag, right? And you introduce it in your flag service, and it's gonna be in your host application, as we discussed. You're gonna manage it, slowly ramp it up, the feature, maybe quickly ramp it up, and then nothing. We stop there because we've established that people don't like to deprecate and clean up the flags. No, I'm kidding. If we do our due diligence and we try to do our job to the very, very end, we deprecate it. We make sure that we remove all of those references from the flag from the code. And afterwards, when the flag is no longer present in the code, we're going to go ahead and delete it from our flag service as well. But where should we update it first? Like, where should the flag first be present? Should it first go into the code? Should it be in the flag service? And what we've come to realize at Google is that it's very, very, it's very, very probable that if you introduce it into the code first, you might evaluate it to some default value, which is not really safe. But if you introduce it into the flag service first, then what happens is usually, the flag is present there, but it's not affecting anything. So the general perspective that we have is that the flag must first be defined into the flag management system before it's even allowed to exist into the host application. So we completely disallow a flag existing into the host application if it's not present in the flag service. And how to check that, right? Because this can kind of be a pretty tedious thing. You as a developer must check, if it's there in the flag service, if it's in your app or what have you. And we kind of have to still somehow reach this eventual consistency when introducing the flags. Like what is present in the flag service should be present also like in your host application or what have you. And with those problems also came like with all those challenges, not just something like, what if? These are things which we actually came across. Just to show you like a few outages, which, they're just human errors and can happen to all of us. I will not say whether one of those 3 examples was caused by me, but, it could happen it could have been me for all I know. So one time, like somebody just had like a flag name and they just accidentally added like a trailing white space. And that pretty much caused, as you've seen in the previous example a few slides back, there just was an unexpected flag value and that just had like dropped the usage of a particular feature. And then there was like a mismatch, like somebody was defining like what the default should be in the code, but then that didn't really match with what was the default in the flag management system. So overnight the feature was like fully launched and there was an outage related to that. And lastly, what I was explaining before, like somebody was in their flag service. Oh, I think we've cleaned up all of the references to this particular feature flag. We are now ready to remove it from our flag service. And they just removed the flag service. And what happened to the flag? It defaulted to the code default value, and it just pretty much caused another outage, and it pretty much disabled that that feature because we weren't really careful. But when we're talking about careful, I think as developers, we always think like, yeah, it's good to be careful, but it's good to even just try to not even consider carefulness. How can we help as developers to just solve the problem before we even need to check into the code of all the flag references, make sure all these things are in sync? It should just be smooth, right? So the perspective of like, why we're here and this talk and Google, what's the perspective of it is, that we came up with the idea to introduce the codegen. So we're generating all of these flag accessors. We're generating type-safe flag accessors based on the flag configurations, and that kind of really helps out in a multitude number of reasons. One is the fact that it allows you to mitigate all of those mistakes of putting the wrong flag name and things like that. And it also offers you a direct source of truth of what the flags which are able to be referenced in the binary are. So at Google, what happened when we introduced the codegen, we completely disallowed reflective access towards the towards the flag. So the only way to access that is with the codegen tooling and the type-safe accessors. And that's the complete and exhaustive list of flags that you can actually access in your binary. And that pretty much allows you to kind of check like what is present in the binary and more easily validate that check. And also when you're deprecating the flag, that's also very cool because it stops being codegen. So if there's any sort of like stale reference to the flag that you might have missed or you might have forgotten about, your host application will not compile, and that would be like a great thing. And with all of these learnings, we wanted to take all of this stuff to the open source. I think it's a really beneficial tooling. So for the past half of a year or so, me and like Mike, we've been talking about like how to develop like a codegen, something which would fit into the context of open source. And gladly like the OpenFeature community was welcoming me with like very open arms, and I was just having a great time. And to learn about what we've been working on in OpenFeature, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, who is going to talk to you about the amazing thing that we worked on for the past months.
All right, thanks, Florin. So yeah, I'm going to talk about OpenFeature real quick. It is a CNCF project we're incubating now, and it's basically an open specification for feature flagging. It's really trying to unify the SDKs, the way developers interact with feature flags, and it works across many different vendors. You can hook it into your homemade solution as well, and it's even a way to like wire in multiple providers simultaneously. So really powerful abstractions, and it's really an ideal way to use feature flagging if you're just getting started. Why would you even want to standardize though? So one of it is to avoid vendor lock-in. You basically have references to your code all over the place, and it can be quite challenging to like migrate depending on your business case. The other one is just building a community around this. Like I get the opportunity to work with Florin now because we're doing this all together. It's actually quite exciting to see how many people care about feature flags, and it's quite fun to like learn other use cases and challenges people are running into. And then based on that community, we're building nice tooling that we can share with everyone, and that's what we'll talk about today. As you can see, the OpenFeature ecosystem is quite large at this point. Hopefully we have your tech stack covered. If not, let us know. We're adding these all the time. And yeah, really happy to see this ecosystem expand. So let's dive into the architecture of OpenFeature. This is going back to the slide we saw earlier. On your right, the flag management system can basically be anything. On the left is your application, of course, but we'll dive in and look at the orange section. So this is kind of where OpenFeature fits in. On the left side here is our SDK, and on the right is what we call the provider. And the provider is basically the interface that will talk to your other systems. You can easily build your own if you'd like, but we also have like hundreds at this point in our ecosystem. Let's look at a Node.js example. So at the top you see we're registering the provider. This should happen once in your application. We can create a client then, and then use the client to basically interact with your feature flag. In this case, it's a silly example, of course, but we're using the with cows flag and then controlling the console output based on that. But one thing you'll probably notice is we're using hard-coded strings. This has been basically the status quo for years. Most people do it like this. Some ways to work around this is to basically hard-code your own const file that does this, and so you can do it in a more unified way. But after chatting with Florin and others, it became very, very clear that this is not exactly what you probably want. So that's where the OpenFeature CLI comes in. This is a brand new initiative. We just started the SIG probably 3 months ago or so. So it's something we're meeting weekly. We're actively developing this stuff, and I think it's going to be the obvious way to start interacting with feature flags in the future. The OpenFeature CLI is a command line tool. We're really trying to improve the developer experience. We think there's a big opportunity there, and there's really like 3 core components to it. First is like hooking into the flag management system. We're going to make that vendor agnostic, so it's one that should work with any tool, including hopefully your own homemade solution if you have one. We also have this concept of like a local manifest, so we want to be able to fetch from that flag management system and keep a reference of the flags in your repo. And then using that, we can do code generation. There's also a lot of other opportunities that we won't touch today, but I think the future is quite bright with this relatively simple concept. Let's take a look at the user flow. So usually what you would do is you'd create a feature flag. In this case, we're just adding it into this like hypothetical management system. Going back to the with cows example, you can see here, this is the key that you would typically reference in your code. This is the thing that maybe a PM would create the feature flag in their tool, and then maybe in a Jira ticket or something, put the link to the flag that you need to reference in your code. It's right there. And then typically you would add some kind of nice description, but again, that's in that management tool. Then we basically would fetch that last known state. So we would pull from that flag management system, and this is just a JSON file that represents like the base of the flag. It doesn't have any sophisticated targeting or anything like that. It's just basically the flag key, the thing that we just saw a second ago, and then other useful metadata like what happens if something fails. And this is the source of truth for the behavior that would be expected in that case. Then we can go ahead and generate a client. So in this case, we're just running the CLI, we're running the generate Node.js command, and you can see that we use that manifest to spit out, in this case, an OpenFeature TS file. And all that changes with all that work is basically the one line here. So you see it's basically identical, but instead of calling the kind of unfriendly Boolean value and passing a string, we have the with cow method now. So really, like it's a small change. It is, but it improves the developer experience quite significantly. So you can see at the top, that's what it used to look like, and then down below is the new stuff that we can do with the codegen, and it effectively eliminates human error. It also provides some really, really rich IDE integrations, and then as Florin mentioned, it basically lets the compiler fight some of our battles in terms of code cleanup and things like that. So let's give it a quick demo. It's usually risky to do a demo at a conference, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so here, there we go, off to a good start. All right, here's our demo application. You can find it on the OpenFeature org if you're interested. It's the toggle shop, and it is a convenient place to buy switches and toggles. As you can see here, we have a little banner here. It's teasing, free shipping on orders over $50, and this is controlled by a feature flag. If we dive into the code real quick, it's hopefully everyone can see this. This is the code for the landing page, and we can see here we're using kind of the old style of interacting with a feature flag. And just to show you how it would work, maybe we remove part of this the flag key here. So I'll just remove that, and then if we go back and give it a quick refresh, you'll see that the banner's gone now, and that's because we're basically defaulting back to the old functionality or the default value because the key no longer exists. And so feature flags typically do not impact, at least they're designed to not impact runtime behavior negatively if something goes wrong. So you're supposed to have good defaults, but this may not be what you want to serve to customers. So that just shows how easy it could be to have typos. Going back to here, if we look at our flag manifest file, we can see we actually have a reference now to like this offer free shipping feature flag. And if I go ahead and just open up our terminal and generate, in this case we'll do the React generation, you can see that we're spitting out some React hooks here, and I'll just show you the diff real quick. This is the generated code for this new React accessor. And because we have all that additional metadata, we can generate some pretty nice, in this case, JS docs to get more additional information that I think significantly helps improve the developer experience. So going back to here, let's go ahead and just replace this one. And so it's the use offer free shipping. But the nice part is if you go here, offer free shipping, it even auto completes, and you can see it right here. Imports it for us, and if you hover over it, we can see there's again the JS docs, we have all the reference, we have the reason for why this exists, and we didn't have to change anything else. It just basically ties in as exactly like you'd expect. If I were to go ahead and save it, hopefully, yeah, the banner is already back, so everything's working. And just to prove that this isn't some kind of demo magic, we'll go ahead and turn this feature flag back off again. And hopefully, if we did everything right, it is gone again. So you can see that we basically just adding this nice, developer experience, using the codegen, using some of the lessons learned, from what Florin was mentioned at Google, and hopefully applying these best practices in a way that anyone could use without having to develop it themselves. Moving back to the presentation. Just to kind of bring it home. So basically, once this thing shows again, there we go. So yeah, today we basically talked about what feature flags are, hopefully to get everyone up to speed on what we're talking about here, how Google uses feature flags and some of the lessons learned, some of the pains that they've experienced over their 10 plus years can be applied to open source software, and hopefully everyone can benefit from that. And then basically how that all came into what we're seeing here with the OpenFeature CLI, and really wanted to invite people, if you're interested, this is our repo. You can take a look at what we have so far. Definitely, give it a star, add some comments, and then join us, really. This is an active community.
Can you move it back? Because I think people are trying to scan.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I'm moving too fast. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so, while you're scanning and everything, just to kind of to elaborate a little bit, we're looking for, two things basically, if you'd like to try and integrate this and play out, and give it a try with the codegen and how it works, we'd love to hear some feedback on just to understand also the user journey, and maybe if we're missing something or there's something which we kind of missed, we'd love to just work and understand how we can make it such that you would hopefully want to integrate this into the future. And the second thing is, we're also very, very open for people to contribute. Hopefully me and Mike was working in such a way that it should be pretty easy for other developers to come on board. And if you see that we're maybe missing support for your favorite language or framework or what have you, like again, we have those things on a weekly basis right now. So we just really love it for you to come with us. So make sure you scan that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then just like there's a lot of other resources. If you're interested in just learning more about OpenFeature, we have openfeature.dev. We have a GitHub org that has like 60 repos at this point. It's growing quite aggressively. And then we're very active on the OpenFeature or the CNCF Slack. You can find us under OpenFeature or OpenFeature Dash, like whatever your favorite technology or framework is. Yeah, thank you very much. You've been a great audience. Please scan the QR code if you'd like to provide feedback. And we'll be around here for a little bit, and we'll also be in the project pavilion until about 2. So if you have any questions, love to hear from you. Thank you very much.